the PLBA. Our goal is to support the growth of local businesses, the business community in Porter's Lake and the surrounding areas. So my name is Alicia Liu. I'm the PLBA's Executive Director, and I'll be your host for tonight. So if you want to find out more about the PLBA, please visit porterslakebusiness.com or follow us on Facebook or Instagram. So we host monthly networking meetings. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator for tonight, the chair of the Porter's Lake Business Association, Chris Atwood. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alicia. And thank you for coming out for this event tonight. I'm happy to say that Alicia will be streaming this event live for those people who weren't able to attend. Prior to just a few minutes ago, we drew names out of a hat to determine who was going to speak first. So I'm happy to say that Doyle Safire, the Liberal candidate, drew number 1. Kevin Conrod with the Green Party number 2, and Kent Smith with the Progressive Conservative Party number 3. So sort of the rules of engagement for tonight. It's going to be a clean fight. There's going to be no low blows. So basically how it's going to work is that first our candidates are going to introduce themselves in the order that they drew their number. They'll have 3 minutes. So I'm going to ask you, Alicia is going to be our official timekeeper as well. So I'm going to ask you to keep an eye on the time. The candidates keep the eye on the time, because after 3 minutes, I will cut you off. So just to let you know. So when it comes to the questions, we reached out to our community at large in advance of this meeting. So we had a number of questions that came in. So I was happy that Alicia was able to kind of vet them, and we had, as I say, quite a few questions come in. So if you're here in the audience and you pose the question and you don't hear your question, it may have been sort of altered to make sure that it fit what other people were asking. So again, when it comes to answering the question, each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer each one of the questions. So, and again, it's going to be your 3 minutes. So some of these questions may not require 3 minutes, or may be something that may not require that full amount of time. So it is your 3 minutes. So if you wish to talk about something a little bit different, or re-answer a question that you felt you didn't have enough time to answer, it's going to be your 3 minutes. And as I say, you'll have 3 minutes to speak, and after that 3 minutes, when you see that clock get down to 0, you're going to see me cut you off. So just to let you know, so that's how the evening is going to proceed. So any questions or comments in regards to the event tonight? And at the very end, so we do have you captive till about 7:45. So based on our timing and scheduling, we may be able to take some questions from the floor. So again, we'll kind of see how everything pans out, but 7:45 is going to be our stop time, and we do have probably about 10-15 minutes for questions from the floor. And again, if we have into the time to have people ask questions from the floor, again, I'll ask you to be respectful in asking the question and make sure that it's something that each one of our candidates will have an opportunity to answer. So without further ado, everybody's clear in regards to the rules of engagement, as they say. First, please keep your eye on the timer.
Great. Good evening, folks. Thank you for coming out this evening. For those who are tuning in online, this is a great opportunity for us as candidates to share with you information about ourselves and our party's platforms. Nova Scotia and the Eastern Shore is a great place to live. We have kind people, spectacular natural beauty. We have a vibrant East Coast culture. For over 30 years, my wife and I have called East Lawrencetown home. This is where we raised our family. This is where we want to retire. This is where we hope to spend all of our days. And that means having the services necessary to sustain that. I am not a career politician running for the first time. I've dedicated 32 years with the Federal Public Service. My whole career has been focused on client delivery. I started my career at Correctional Services Canada as a parole officer. I spent 15 years in the field supervising offenders, working with their families, dealing with mental health and addictions. I moved over to the management stream and then changed departments and went to Veteran Affairs Canada. And I've been with Veteran Affairs for 16 years, as a manager, as a policy advisor, and a program manager. So with that, I've developed some unique skills that brings a client-centered focused lens to how we develop policy and implement programs. And I think that's something that's really required in the legislature today, is to have that skill set. For those of us who actually provide direct client service, we see the impact of good programs, we see where gaps exist. We also see the positive impacts that good programs have on families and communities. So my campaign is rooted in 3 principles: committed to our communities, solution-focused, and accountable to you. So I'm looking forward to engaging with all of you, with my fellow candidates, having an exchange of dialogue and ideas. What's important to remember is that no one person has all the answers. No party has all the answers. Good policies and programs are not static, they're dynamic, and they're constantly evolving as the need evolves. So it's important for us to listen and to adapt. When I approach a challenge, I use a principle called RAFT. And what RAFT stands for is responsive, accountable, focused, and transparent. The process and the actions must be responsive to the need and not a reaction to the need. There must be accountability on how we achieve the results and accountable to the people who we represent. The actions must be focused on the solution. And finally, it must be transparent. So I'm looking forward to this evening's event. Again, thank you for coming out. Thank you for participating in democracy. I'm looking forward to a wonderful evening.
Kevin?
Hello, I'm Kevin Conrod. I live in Halifax-Dartmouth. I was born in Halifax and raised partially in Westfall, up the road here. The reason I'm saying this is some of you know me, some of you don't. This is why I'm explaining all this. Then I grew up in Pugwash on a farm where you learn the value of hard work and community spirit. I went to the College of Cape Breton and became an environmental technologist and worked for that for about 15 years. Then I went into carpentry because I'd always done it, and I went in full time and joined the Carpenters Union. And I got my red seal. And the problem with the trades back then, they're not as busy as now when there wasn't steady work here. So like a lot of you or your loved ones or friends, I'm sure you know that have had to go west and work. And Alberta's nice, but it's not quarters like Nova Scotia. So I've had to do that, and I actually worked in the States for 6 years at a nuclear power plant. Imagine that. So they let me do that too. So I worked around a little bit and learned a lot. Now I live here again, and yeah, it's a beautiful spot. The reason I got into the Green Party is I looked at their values. If you have a chance, go on their site, and there's like 6 pillars of the kind of the Green Party, and this is what I have. I looked at them and I had the same values, and that's why I joined the Green Party. I call them common sense ideas, and I know we've been here for like 3 or 4 elections, and it's kind of new, the party to Nova Scotia, but the values aren't new. And it's kind of like, I call it like getting back to the basics of what good government should be. And we have it, I mean, I walk around and I canvass and I talk to people, and we do have it good here. Nova Scotia is beautiful. But there's a few problems that we have, and we can work together. Health care, housing, affordability, they're all major problems we have right now. The Green Party is kind of I call it a comprehensive party, where everything is related. And yes, I like to talk about global warming and the environment. I know it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal sometimes in the election, but everything's related. It's like we look at the global warming and the problems we have. I mean, the wells are going dry. Lake Major's going dry and people can't drink. We have hurricanes all the time. We have floods and fires. And it affects us with prices, and it still costs you money. Next time when the insurance rates go up, you'll be paying for that. So we look at everything that's related. And you think it's the environmental problems. We look at it like, then it'll help the health problems. So that's kind of what the Green Party and I represent is a comprehensive party that looks at everything together. because everything's related. Thank you.
Kevin?
Or Ben?
Kevin, you go again.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kent Smith. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. For the benefit of the room, I know a lot of familiar faces here in the crowd, but some folks that I don't know. So I'll say that I am 45 years old. I was born and raised in Sheet Harbor. I spent 35 years in that community. I moved to Musquodoboit Harbor in 2014. Spent 7 years living in Musquodoboit Harbor. The last 3 years I've called Porter's Lake home. My partner and I built a house off of Little Jessis Lane off the Myra Road. Some of you would be familiar with it because it's a funny name and easy to remember. My career-wise, I was in a family business in Sheet Harbor for 14 years that I acquired from my father in 2010 and sold to another company in 2015. In 2016, I went into real estate, and then in 2021, I threw my name in the hat to become the MLA for the Eastern Shore and was successful in that race, obviously, because I'm sitting there as the incumbent. I will say for the last 3.5 years as the MLA here, I've really, really loved the job. For the first 2 years, I was on the back bench, and that meant that I had to spend a lot of time on legislative committees. So I sat on 5 different legislative committees. I won't name all of them for you, but there are 9 legislative committees, and I was assigned to 5 of them. Those 5 committees taught me so much about how government works, and got to meet so many of the high-ranking bureaucrats that come and testify as witnesses at those committees. And it really set the stage for what happened on September 14th, 2023, when the Premier tapped me on the shoulder and said, Kent, I'd like you to come and join Cabinet as Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture. So it's an incredible honor, incredible privilege for me to sit at the Cabinet table with my peers, and I feel very proud of that fact. It's not lost on me that as a minister, I'm not a minister for the Eastern Shore, like I'm an MLA for the Eastern Shore, I'm a minister for the entire province. So it does take me out of the constituency more than I like, but I'm very mindful of that, and I try to make sure that my time is balanced between going to Yarmouth and seeing buyers and processors of seafood, and going to Sydney and seeing buyers and processors of seafood, and time in Ecum-Secum, and time in Sheet Harbor, and time in Upper Lakeville. So I hope that time is noted, and that everyone knows that I'm cognizant of that. And ultimately, I hope that people on the Eastern Shore are proud that their MLA is a cabinet minister, because it is an incredible privilege and honor to serve all of Nova Scotia. So I see I have 25 seconds left, so I'll leave a little bit more for the closing remarks, but just know that I'm very, very honored to have the job, and I'm going to work my tail off to keep it, and I hope that I've made you all proud over the last 3.5 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kent. So the first question that we have is in relationship to health and wellness. And again, remember you've got 3 minutes, and as I say, how you use the 3 minutes is up to you. With waiting times between 6 and 18 months for services such as medical imaging or blood work, the lack of family doctors, and the lack of medical staff in our hospitals, particularly our rural hospitals, what are your achievable plans for health care over the next term? And this question goes to number 2, which is Kevin.
Yes.
Before we start, I encourage you to speak louder because they can't really hear it on the screen.
Oh, okay.
Just everyone.
I will try. Yes, as we know, healthcare is one of the major issues, if not one of the major issues in this election. We all know the problems we have. We have doctor shortages, healthcare professional shortages, wait times out of this world, ambulance, when you call an ambulance, I mean, it's just, the thing is, I call it going back to what Nova Scotia expected of a healthcare system. I mean, it wasn't that long ago when you called, you made an appointment, you went to see the doctor, and you got an appointment, you went to see him, and there was a schedule. You kind of knew what was going to happen. Now, like I say, when I tell people I'm working with, don't get hurt, because if you call an ambulance, you don't know when you're going to get it, you don't know where it's going to go, and these are the problems that we have. We all know them. Solutions to these is we have to recruit and retain more doctors and healthcare professionals, all of them. We have to provide more openings in the universities. We're looking at going out of the country to get more doctors to come here. Not that they're not going to be qualified. You have to still maintain our qualifications in the field. And we're all we know what the problems are. I mean, we set up mobile clinics with the professionals. Instead of having your travel nurses, you can have a travel nurse team. Instead of paying somebody to do it, then you can do that where they needed to go around the province for now. This is kind of all fill-in things from where this spot we're at. What we're aiming for is I call it a healthcare with dignity, where as a Nova Scotia Canadian, we should expect to have our own doctor. That's what we used to have, and that's what we have to get back to. That's what we want. To me, that's like your basic as a Canadian with our healthcare that we should have, and that's what we want. Things like the thing that really bothers me is private healthcare. Private healthcare, I worked in the States one time, and I had good insurance through the union down in the States. And right now, I'll be adamant, you never, ever, ever want private healthcare for U.S. healthcare in Canada. They have a public healthcare system, which is supposed to be a free universal system for all Canadians. And when I travel around, I don't know you, but I brag about our healthcare system. And all you're doing is, if you have private, is you take professionals from the public system, put them in the private system, and then it doesn't help the system. All you're doing is giving some extra money to somebody who can make money off our system. It's like they're promising free shingles vaccines. That's one of the promises, and it's a great idea, but it should never been charged for. That should be free. All vaccines should be free for all Nova Scotians. This one I really want, because as a Canadian and Nova Scotian, free healthcare is what we should have. And to have the private come in, I say, and there's provinces that have outlawed this. I say it should all be outlawed, because I say they're outlaws. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's a three-part question. Talks about wait times for diagnostic imaging, talks about the lack of family doctors, and talks about understaffed hospitals. So I'll start by saying I encourage everyone to check out the Action for Health Nova Scotia website, and that is a detailed and comprehensive list of the initiatives that we've put forward over the last 3.5 years. Because we are very proud of the track record that we have on healthcare and the progress that we've made. It will be a while before we fix it, but I believe that we are on the right path. With respect to wait times for diagnostic imaging, the crux of this issue started during COVID, when nobody could go into the hospitals and get the imaging done that they required. So that created a massive backlog, and we recognize that, and we've taken unique steps to try and reduce wait times. There's a CT scan that typically would sit and wait for emergencies to happen before it was utilized, and now we schedule that emergency CT scan to do routine CT scans. The MRIs that are backlogged still, we've created evening and weekend appointments to try and reduce that backlog for MRIs. So we recognize there was a backlog. The cause was COVID, and we've taken steps to try and reduce them overall. With respect to the lack of family doctors, of course, no one is pleased that there's 145,000 Nova Scotians without a family doctor, but that is why we've taken steps to increase access to care. And by that I mean expanding the scope of service that pharmacists can do, opening pharmacy clinics, mobile clinics, virtual care, Maple, all of those things are helping people access primary care. With respect to another solution to that problem, though, is the Cape Breton University Medical School that we announced in January of 2023. That is going to graduate 30 doctors a year. They're going to have a 5-year return of service agreement for the province. They're going to be Nova Scotian graduates coming to work back in Nova Scotia. This is a good thing for our province. On top of that, we've sped up the process for internationally medically trained graduates to get certified for Nova Scotia. We created their own assessment center. We announced it in early October this year. That will graduate up to 12 every 12 weeks if they meet the qualifications to work in our province. So those two initiatives will put up to 70 doctors a year back in the system. So chip away at that 145,000 need a family practice wait list. Lastly, I will say with respect to shortages on the Eastern Shore, I know for a fact that of our 2 hospitals on the shore, there is currently 1 vacancy. There is 1 RN position advertised for the Eastern Shore Memorial Hospital in Sheet Harbour. At Twin Oaks Memorial, they have a full complement of staff. There are positions that are advertised for future growth of that hospital that I'm not at liberty to share with everyone at this meeting, but be excited because there's good things happening. Thank you.
Doyle?
Thank you, folks. So healthcare, I think, is the number one issue for most Nova Scotians. It's a two-part problem. One is infrastructure, the other is actual staff. Mr. Houston wants to double the population of Nova Scotia. If we do the basic math, if the current hospitals are at capacity and we double the population and we don't double the number of hospitals, it's only gonna get worse. We're trying to get ahead, but we don't have the infrastructure in order to actually make the necessary resources available to people. We also have the issue with staff. Whether it's diagnostic or doctors, we're not filling the silver wave. People are leaving. If you look at the number of people on the wait list, 140,000 people. If the average doctor serves 2,000 people, we basically need 70 doctors. That's it. So why are we not getting ahead? It's not a net gain. We're losing more doctors than we're training. Our population is growing faster and we're always in the hole. So we need to have a bold approach going forward. And it's going to be multi-pronged. Band-aids or reactions aren't going to fix it. We need to be honest with people that we're in probably a almost generational fix. You're not going to be able to build hospitals overnight. You're not going to be able to train new doctors overnight. Recruitment is great, but if you don't have invested roots in Nova Scotia, you're not going to stay. I don't have a family doctor. I've lost 3 in the last 2 years. Both recruited, both left. One because their mother got sick, they went home. Another one because they didn't want to stay in Nova Scotia. We have to have a made in Nova Scotia solution. Our plan is looking at building infrastructure, starting with the hospital in Annapolis Valley. We're also looking at 40 collaborative care centers. Putting collaborative care centers in communities means that the infrastructure is in that community. The doctor is not going to take a small practice and move it to a different community. Same as a school. Your school's in your community, the teachers are in the community. That's where the infrastructure is. And then you attract people to the infrastructure. Our collaborative care model is based on the model that Claire used, where they took municipal funds, built a clinic, and they staffed it, now they're expanding it. That's the model for future care. Wraparound services, mental health, all in one place, in a community. Infrastructure, supported by personnel, servicing communities. That's the vision that we have to move towards. Is it going to be easy? No. When I was younger, the brightest and youngest minds wanted to grow up to be doctors. Now our youngest and brightest minds want to become robotics, AI, artificial intelligence. What we need to do is start encouraging those people to go into healthcare and support them. And part of our plan is forgivable student loans, 20% a year for every year they stay, 5 years. Hopefully they put down roots, they stay in the community, and we start moving towards success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doyle. The next question will be for Kent, and again, it's around public works. That growth is expected to be within the HRM. And since the Halifax-Dartmouth core is already saturated, more and more people will move to this area and within the Eastern Shore. What is your plan to achieve the province's vision whilst averting the traffic and facilitating public transportation on the Eastern Shore, as well as addressing the other infrastructure issues that come with growth?
Thank you, Chris. I'd like to start by saying that, yes, the Premier was clear in 2021 that we would like to double the population over 40 years, so by 2060, not as if we want to double it tomorrow. We do have a plan for growth. We have a balanced plan that right now is focused on healthcare workers and skilled trades, because we are in a growth mode right now. We are building lots of infrastructure in Halifax. If you drive across the bridge, you will see 20 to 30 cranes in the air that are building housing for people so that we have enough for everyone in this province. With respect to the challenges of transportation in and out of HRM, well documented, there was a major announcement today by our Premier, $810 million for infrastructure investments in the HRM. The details will follow, but is an incredibly significant announcement to promote and make movement around HRM much easier. I would also encourage everyone to have a look at the JRTA, the Joint Regional Transportation Agency. We created that about a year ago. The mandate of that entity is to look at improving transportation within 100 kilometers of the city core. So part of our platform talks about expanding the JRTA to look at a feasibility study for light rail. It would be phenomenal to have a light rail system in and around the city core to take cars off the road and make it easier for people to get in and out of the city. I would love to see expanded public transportation. We are fortunate in this community to have Musco Rider, which picks up and fills a lot of gaps that Metro Transit leaves for us. I know that in conversations with Councillor Hensby, Metro Transit is heavily subsidized and the ridership from this community is quite low. Perhaps with growth in population, we could see expanded use, which would make a better business case to convince Halifax to HRM to expand the transit service more along this neighborhood. But I know that Musco Rider is a great entity. They fill a lot of voids. They've received a lot of funding from the federal government, from the provincial government, and the municipal government, and I know that they are continuing to grow and fill needs and help Nova Scotians. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So infrastructure with traffic is a major thing in our platform. You will recall that Mr. Churchill announced that part of our platform was free public transit. Now that's not going to benefit everybody from Cape Breton Yarmouth. What it is designed to do is remove the pressure off HRM and the congestion. Part of that also looking at programs like Musco Rider and other regional transportation services and subsidizing those as well. We need to have an integrated flow between communities. But one of the things that we have to stop is the congestion in Halifax. And stopping that is encouraging public transportation. One of the things that the Premier is looking at right now is removing tolls off the bridge. All the studies will show that if you remove tolls off the bridge, you will actually increase congestion. And currently, if anybody actually commutes to Halifax and there's an accident on the bridge, you're stuck for hours. One of the parts of our plan is also looking at replacing the McKay Bridge. The McKay Bridge is at the end of its lifetime. It's the only bridge that takes transport traffic, and now it needs to be replaced. So the question is, how do you replace it? This is where you start looking with vision. The plan is to replace it with a 6-lane bridge, not to have 6 lanes of traffic, to have the same 2 lanes of traffic, but dedicated transportation lanes for buses. We want to reduce the traffic. If you look at every major city that's tried to reduce traffic in their downtown core, it's because they have a reliable, dependable transit system. We need to look at how we then take communities outside of the core and integrate that into the transit system. And I agree with Ken, light rail is an option that's going to be explored. Part of our plan is also expanding the joint regional transportation strategy to look at light rail. We're also looking at a joint task force with HRM to identify issues with congestion and looking to engage communities on what your needs are. I was in Mosier River a little while ago, or actually yesterday and again last week, and I was talking to seniors who can't get to the grocery store. They rely on people. There's no transportation, there's no buses, there's no taxi. So how do we actually create corridors that actually connect communities? We are one big family in Nova Scotia, but we're slowly becoming isolated because we don't have regional transportation. Light rail may be part of that. Other transportation services can be part of that. We also have to look outside of the core. Yes, congestion is important in the core, but we have to look at transportation across the province. So our plan is going to look at all of that, and I think it's actually going to help with climate, but help with movement. Thank you.
Yes, hello. As we know, the ones who go to work from about 6 in the morning till 10 in the morning, then coming back is a huge amount of traffic going in town. If there's an accident, you're stuck there for hours, 2 Fridays in a row. This is the problem. What we do and what we need to design is a better bus service. We have a bus service down here now, but we need a lot more buses and on a regular schedule that people can depend on. If you lived in a big city, I have for a while, where you depend on the buses And once you use them, then once you start using them, then they have to be cheap, and they have to be safe. Safety is a big thing on them, as you see on the news. This is what we need. I mean, I was talking to people, and they say when they go across the bridge in the morning, most cars have one person in them. And there's just so much congestion. I mean, I actually hate going to Halifax to try to find a parking spot, because there's just so much traffic. And the city's growing, and we need a comprehensive plan so we can, in the future, because it's just gonna keep getting worse if we don't have something. So this is what we have to do. I mean, they're giving a plan where they, a lot of promises in the election where they wanna take the tolls off the bridge. To me, I don't get it. I mean, I know it's election time, but the money you're gonna save, you know, what are you gonna make that up with? And to have that just taken off for just election thing, you have to look long-term with this stuff. You can't just tomorrow just make these huge changes, and it has to be, you know, it has to work together with the other plans. It's like the ferry. I go and I take the ferry to Halifax instead of driving. Why don't we just make the ferries free? If you made the ferries free, and you expanded the parking lot there, because to try to get on the ferry, try to find a parking spot is not great. Make the ferries free. People would go there and they'd use them, because it's a lot easier to do that than try to find a parking spot in Halifax most of the time and get out of there. And I know light rails come up, and for the outside communities further away, yeah, that's an option. And as the province grows and as the city grows, you're gonna have to do this. Otherwise, you'll never get into town after so much time. And this is what we have to look at. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. That we're moving on.
It's a little bit hard to hear back here.
Okay.
So even if they could stand up or something.
There's seats in the
I
front
never
row,
sit
Gene.
In the front row.
You're going to have the first crack at the ball with this one. The infrastructure in the Eastern Shore is often neglected, as roads go unpaved, get riddled with potholes, or lack of center lines. Although normal wear and tear due to the weather or the repeated use of the road is expected, what is your plan to remedy these issues all over the Eastern Shore in a timely fashion?
I think I will stand. It's easier to project than to stand. So I'll be honest with you. I can't promise what I can do. What I can do is advocate for our needs. Decisions are made at the cabinet level, within legislature, but you need a strong voice to advocate for that. One thing I think is really interesting is that when the government commits to people, they should follow through on that. I do a lot of project management in the federal government, and we run all kinds of charts, and we keep status, delayed, on time, pending approvals, everything else. I had something brought to my attention recently where a section of the number 7 down towards Mosier River was on the 5-year plan. It was there for a couple of years, paving was guaranteed, and then it just disappeared off the 5-year plan. It's no longer there. It's not there with a column that says delayed. It just disappeared. And when you remove things from a plan, you take away the accountability that you have. All of our infrastructure plans, regardless of how big and how small they are, should never disappear from a plan. They should be there so people who represent you can advocate for you. For you as individuals can see the plan, to see the commitments that have been made to you, and then hold your representative accountable to ask why. It's different to have something delayed than have it removed. Now, our plan as a party, and I'll be honest with you, it's not an immediate benefit for us in this region, is to focus on the 100 series highways. Now, the 100 series highways, it stops at Muscatauga. There is plans for paving and improvement on the other routes, but we are the only riding that doesn't have a 100 series highway going through it. And speaking to the earlier talk about growth going forward, is that something that we need? Do we need a 100 series highway that goes from Porters Lake to Sheet Harbor? That's a discussion that we need to have with communities, because often 100 series highways take traffic out of communities and businesses die, but it could also promote growth. So the question is, how do we see our vision? The growth and the infrastructure has to be a discussion that we have as a community so we can plan together. But the highway infrastructure is something that's on our plan. Currently, the focus will be on the controlled access to the 101, the 103, and the 104. We're getting new ramps on exit 20 that's coming on the 107. But infrastructure on the highways is crucial. Cellular, that's another topic, and hopefully we'll talk about that later on. Thank you.
Kevin, this is your contact.
Thank you. Yes, as you know, when you go to work every day, the roads are getting a little rough in spots. You go to Muscatava, you have Myers Grant, that road has to be done soon. That one is in really bad shape. Down past Sheet Harbor, that section there, that's another section that's really bad. And again, the Green Party, we'd like to be inclusive, and we like to include everybody's opinion, and that's what it'll do. You have to let people plan, look at the finances, and see where it's most needed. That's what we can do, and spend the money at that. And but again, we should expect some really good highways, and that's what we need. Again, it's part of the whole transportation sector where we come in, and if we can include the transportation and improve on that, then we'll have less wear and tear on our roads. But this is like one of the basics people need. They have to have something to go to work in the morning. It's a lifeline. And the Green Party is that's our growth, is to make that part of our plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'm focused on the comment of riddled with potholes, because in 3.5 years as MLA, I've tracked every email and every phone call, and my associate Kelly and I keep a log of which department people are calling and emailing about. Number one department almost every year in a row, Public Works. So we hear about the potholes, and we have great relationships with the operations manager here in Chesuncook and in Spry Bay, with the area manager, with the district manager. So those relationships are key to making sure that we can address concerns swiftly for the constituents. I'm relatively proud of the track record for Public Works on the Eastern Shore in the last couple of years. Those of you who have driven from Porters Lake to Sheet Harbor recently would see that there's 9 kilometers of brand new pavement that was desperately needed. And I'm proud to say that each year I have a meeting with the area manager and the district manager and talk about priorities for the constituency. And we were able to make sure that the number 7 highway remained a top priority, because it is the main thoroughfare. It is our economic driver. It's our tourism driver. We've done some maintenance paving on a few other roads. The West Pepesic Road, the entirety of that got done. Upper Lakeville was done shortly after we got elected in 2021. So the work is happening. There are competing priorities within budgets. We are not the only constituency in the province, and we have to be mindful of that we live in a province where there's 20-odd thousand kilometers of roads, and there's money that has to be divided up and shared equally amongst the constituencies. We have a comprehensive plan for the next few years in this constituency as well. The tender for the Muscatava Harbor Bridge closed on October 22nd. That work is going to start this year and hopefully be completed next year. Another 3.5-4 kilometers of paving through the core of Muscatava Harbor is planned for next year. We have 2 new ramps that are going to be built at exit 21 heading westward, so that when the new school is built, we'll be able to access exit 21 from both directions now. The Lawrencetown Road, Highway 207, that is going to be realigned. That is a partnership with the federal government. I try to give credit where it is due. So instead of fighting with climate change any longer, we're going to move the 207 away from the Atlantic Ocean and hopefully not have to spend money maintaining that after swells. So again, I'm proud of the track record that our Public Works team has here on the Eastern Shore. Again, I work closely with them, talk to the guys at both bases almost daily, if not for sure weekly, and I'd like to keep that relationship going and keep on asking them to help us on the Eastern Shore. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kent. Moving on to our 4th question of tonight, and this is around housing. The need for more affordable housing is at an all-time high within the province and here in the area. How are you and your party projecting to make housing more affordable or make a substantial difference in the cost of living how fast can we expect you to be able to act on this issue? And this question first goes to, this goes to Kevin.
Thank you. As you know, besides healthcare, housing is one of the next major issues. I mean, the population grew by about 20% in the last 4 or 5 years in Halifax and the province, and the price is skyrocketing and everything's in demand. There's one of the promises the government's putting forward, which I kind of looked at, was dropping the down payment. I was going to say 100%, and that's a good idea, but it's not time for it. If you do that, all you're going to do is increase demand and increase the profits. We have to increase the supply, even materials, and we have to recruit and retain workers, the tradespeople, to build the houses. And it's almost like the healthcare workers, because it's almost that, well, it is important, is that you, if you help educate them, save on their taxes, you help with their education, living expenses, then they have to work so long in the province. This is something we can do for them. This is important too. Also, another plan is to take the government buildings that aren't being used and convert them into apartments for affordable housing. Again, I've talked to people where the province has made them to go back to work. They were working from home. I know this is, like I say, everything's related. Where they're made to go back to work because they were working from home. Now they have to go back to work to build these buildings, which they don't really have to because they're still getting the work done, and then convert these to apartments and affordable housing. This is stuff that we have to do. There's just, like I said, we need a comprehensive plan, but we can assume we can. Our plan is to build the houses. I mean, we say as quick as possible. I've heard more numbers, 40,000, 80,000. I mean, we can, if you have the manpower to do the housing, we can get 50,000 houses in 3 or 4 years. We can do that. But again, you have to have the tradespeople to do it. All the trades, all the workers, we have to have that. I hate to keep saying this, but everything's related. And I know I don't want to talk about global warming a lot, but that's the problem we have. And they go, well, it's not a problem. Well, the last hurricane and the fires we had, we lost 200 homes. So again, it's related because the people that were building these 200 homes, right? If they didn't have to do that, they could have built the 200 homes that people needed for affordable housing. Excuse me. So it's all related. And after all, we have this, you have to pay to build them and all that. When your insurance rates go up because of all the damage, then you have to pay for that. So we actually do have to pay for all this stuff in the long term. Like I say, this is what we have to do, recruit, and we have to increase the supply. And this is how we're going to increase the supply. Thank you.
Anyone watch the leaders debate last Thursday? The Premier was asked multiple times about the housing and affordability, and he answered the same almost every time. And I'm going to start my answer by repeating the Premier's words. The solution to this housing crisis is more housing. The solution to housing affordability is more housing. It is very basic economics of supply and demand. When you have the limited supply of something and everyone wants it, the price goes up. And that is the situation that we're in right now. So what we've done as a government is created a climate to make development easier. So the first thing we did was the Special Task Force on Housing for HRM, and that committee is 5 people, and it can make special planning areas. I believe right now we're at 12, and those 12 special planning areas represent 26,000 units that have been approved. That doesn't give them, it's not the be-all and the end-all, it doesn't give them an automatic approval to build, but what it does do, it allows them to go through the HRM permitting process much more swiftly. So when something from a special planning area arrives on an HRM planner's desk, the idea is that it moves to the top, so that those priority areas that we've designated get built faster. That is one of our solutions. We are investing in public housing for the first time in 40 years. In this constituency, we have 3 public housing units. There's one in Porter's Lake, Spruce Grove Apartments, there's one in Musquodoboit Harbor, Forest Glen, and one in Sheet Harbor, Elmhurst. I've been through all of those buildings and talked to those people. Those are rent geared to income. So each tenant in those buildings pays 30% of their income. Regardless of what their income is, they pay 30% of it. We are building more of those, and we announced that earlier this year. Another initiative that we're taking for affordable housing is a land for housing offer. So there are hundreds, if not thousands, of parcels of Crown land throughout the province. We are going to offer them up to not-for-profits and developers for $1. The exchange is that they have to submit a proposal that shows that it's good value for Nova Scotians and that they are creating affordable housing. The other things that we've done to help Nova Scotians who are renting and having troubles making ends meet is increase the rent supplement availability. That is not the be-all and the end-all, and that's not something that I want to be up here bragging about per se, but it is another option for people that are having troubles with their rents and affordability. So I think those are some pretty concrete examples of steps that the PC government has taken to try and increase the supply of housing in our province. Thank you.
So housing and affordability go hand in hand. Not everybody owns a house. We have people who rent, people who have apartments. We can increase supply, and our plan looks for increasing 80,000 new housing units. But we also have to look at the reality of it. Real estate goes up, and it stays up. Everybody who bought in the last 3 years at an inflate rate is not going to be selling their house when they downsize at a much lower rate. We talk about the cranes in Halifax. Every one of those apartment buildings I drive by, you'll see a sign that says luxury apartments. I've yet to see one that says affordable apartments. Developers are going to go where the money is. That's the reality. So you have to have a plan that's going to look at those who are not in that market, those who require assistance from the government. So some of the things that we're looking at is going to the people who actually work, the not-for-profit organizations. So with the not-for-profit, we're looking at actually increasing funding for not-for-profit housing. We're looking at increasing funding for condo developments as well, or co-op housing. And that's going to actually address those individuals and create affordable housing. Yes, we will still be looking at building more units, more apartments, and hopefully eventually, if our growth plateaus and we actually succeed the supply, maybe prices will come down. I think most Nova Scotians who've bought in don't want their prices to come down. So the only other alternative is to bring wages up. The other part of this that's going to be really important is for the renters. Currently, renters are not protected. Look what happened to everybody who lived down at St. Margaret's Boulevard. Being evicted, developers going to make new buildings, and the rent is going to go up exponentially. So where's the protection for renters? How do we ensure that renters do not get overlooked so that a developer can make more money on the same piece of property? And part of our plan is to fix the fixed lease loophole. That allows a lease to terminate, and then for that person to either raise it or to redevelop it and bring somebody in. The people who are being hurt the most are those who can't afford housing. So yes, we have to grow housing for our general population, but we cannot overlook those marginalized communities. And the other community we have to look at is seniors. And part of our plan looks at senior housing, small co-op options for seniors, so that people can downsize and stay in their communities. Thank you.